Okay, I'm gonna see how this lighting does. It looks alright. I mean, it looks like it'll do for now. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, it's really not a big deal, but, the thing with this is that it is a big deal about the, it's kind of like even getting any beer, even more so, you know, normally what I would, you know, choose as a preference, like a Coors Light, and normally I don't, but that is most definitely, and what, I don't like using that phrase, most definitely. I don't want to sound like a politically incorrect idiot, okay? In any case, yeah, so, that is, obviously a problem, with whatever, you know, I don't know what the deal is. You know, my impression about the Food and Drug Administration, FDA approved and all that was, more about something similar in the way what a U.S. patent is to products. I was with the impression that the FDA is that way with like food. In that way, you know, I never really truthfully ever investigated anything really about it to the extent of what protection or enforcing or is involved with, you know, the Food and Drug Administration in the way of my impression, how accurate I am, or about my perception is ultimately getting to the point of what I'm like sending you this quick. You know, there was like a, you know, I did purchase some a 12-pack of like of Coors Light, and it's kind of like causing an issue, and it's kind of like I'm getting some fluid built up in my leg now. I actually purchased the Seagram 7, the 1.75 liter bottle of whiskey, and pretty much for like I think it's been 3 or 4 days now. Anyway, yeah, so like it was like a 3 or 4 day thing, and didn't really seem to be an issue, but towards the later part of the 3 days, it may have been going on 4 days. In any case, yeah, I started getting a little bit of a fluid buildup in both my legs, even more so on the left side. And I talked to the doctor, because the first time when I went to the hospital, it was I'm almost for certain it wasn't limited to, but predominantly the real issue about the water was flavored water, and I tasted a different something, and it was like almost immediately, you know, I didn't feel it. You know, that's what I was explaining to the doctor, that I felt it, but it's like I didn't feel any anything at all that was in any kind of way like destructive. It was with my perception, you know, that sometimes my thoughts about you know, like degree genius beyond comprehension, about maybe something like that, that it like absorbing and evaporating, and just like going through the lining of the stomach and the intestines, wouldn't be an issue of like, you know, that type of chemistry, and not even any damage to any tissue at all. But in any case, I had the Doppler for my blood vessels, that way, and sonography for my stomach and abdomen area, obviously the echocardiogram for my heart, and there was the obviously the x-ray, the normal x-rays for you know, bone, as well as the I believe they did some on the kidneys and the liver as well, with and without contrast. I'm thinking they did it with and without contrast. In any case, yeah, so like I had called and I asked a specific question, you know, did the results of the sonography and the x-rays and all that done, you know, and they told me that everything looked good, that there really wasn't anything to worry about. Yet that still happened. And now it's kind of like a, well, I just got some beer in it, and it's really sometimes really not limited to beer. As a matter of fact, I purchased some milk, and it seems to be like almost like having a home theater, and it's like everyone's telling you, like you're accepting and agreeing to it, like the atmos. It's like a big deal with like home theater systems now, and like when I was like really seriously getting into the alphanumerics of like 192 with that one word in the book of Thessalonians and re-entering heaven thing about the Mount Olives and the Lord Jesus Christ resurrecting like in the third day, and he said, "Do not touch me, for I have not yet ascended unto my Father" thing, the Mount Olive thing, the rising canyon wise one. Go to the rising canyon where many moons fly, and you will find sight. Yeah, sure. Okay, well, Moses is on the Euphrates, right? The rising canyon on the Euphrates, yeah. Okay. Anyway, so like likewise, the word transfiguration equated to like 192, and before I really even knew it, that one word is like a really big deal in electronics. I'm not sure if it's limited to, and I'm not sure if it's actually a result of any type of formulas or what the formulas are actually used for to calibrate. I think it is the mega kilohertz 192. I'm not sure if that's actually a power range of like a certain type of amplification. I'm not sure if it's a frequency issue of amplification, or what type of if it's a power issue with frequency, if it's going to be an issue of like a bandwidth or bandwave, or what type of band, if that's going to be the issue involving the frequency. I'm not real sure. Anyway, but like the 192 is like a real big deal, and I never really ever saw it until really after I started writing, the Pentagon and Washington and all that biblical stuff, and it seemed to be like the quarterback thing for real. The quarterback number of the century for like virtually every quarterback being 12, and it's like the 1200 reserve ranks and 12 tribe of Israel thing with that one word ultimately getting to re-entering heaven, and that one word transfiguration applied to the US $1, the I knew it, see holy miracle, the I knew it confidence thing, and it equates to 12, okay? And it really does. That's about knowing about that symbolic value on the back side in between that C and the PTIS. The symbolic representation is normally 58. You probably remember the old McDonald's hot cafe coffee kind of thing, and those are every possible letter, every possible combination, using the alphanumeric values of what that symbolic representation together, separately, and in combination ultimately get to is like 58. And actually, actually something also in addition, something about the exclusionary rule provision involving, my perception of like Texas Instruments, in the way of knowing what software engineering going beyond its own design with its functions in mode would result normally in a 0-point E. It's saying that means that it's going beyond the program that it was designed to actually be used for. Likewise, the one with calculus is the same way, except instead of a 0-point E, and when the 0-point E is joined together, it looks just like the symbol on the backside of the US $1. Likewise, knowing that much about it, the EE on the Texas Instruments pops up anything beyond its programmable, software engineered bill of calculus. The EE, it does the same thing when it goes beyond what the software engineering program was manufactured and designed for. Anything beyond that would have to be an upgrade, and probably an added expense to get into, if you want to call it quantum theory, or or physics, or whatever the case may be, in that way. But yeah, so it's kind of like the EE came to be like the issue while I was like while I was actually talking about it, because I was reading like the entire Black's Law Dictionary when I was going through the circuit, and it's like that ERP was like the 39 thing, almost like the New York 39 being 78, and that like FBI Miracle and Heart God thing, and Pontiac Excitement, yeah. So anyway, it's kind of like ultimately getting to the sanitation pont thing, ultimately a reserve. Yeah, for real. In any case, yeah. So like it went on and on and on about the NY thing and the 78 thing and something about Manville, Texas, and zip codes and yeah. And Robert, yeah, the hard God, yeah, sure, man. Yeah, okay, yeah. International baptism, yeah, it's amazing, yeah. Americas. Excuse me, psychic warriors. Excuse me. Are you really trying to say telepathic? Is there really a telepathic warrior involved with a psychic warrior? America's foremost psychic spy, and the cover-up of the top secret CIA Stargate program, right? Yeah, right, okay, yeah, sure, man. Yeah, okay, good, great. Anyway, so likewise, it's kind of like getting into the part about the exclusionary rule provision in that 39, based upon the value of the acronym itself. And something about the transaction to the bank and the line, representative of normally a flat line being like a 180 degree. A flat line is 180 degree. Okay, it's like a telepathic. It's like an automatic deal with a rainbow, in the sense of even a protractor. It's just like an automatic 180 degree, straight line, from side to side on a protractor, even more so than probably any of them, or anyone who really likes something very much about like Saturn and rainbows, for real. So and geoprism is geoprism, yeah, and all that good stuff about governors, president, and the alphanumerics of 247 and a Robert E. Rubin maneuver thing, the 247 thing, oh yeah, all right. Well, anyway, so in any case, I was kind of like looking at the exclusionary rule provision in the way of that symbolic representation, that haloed left side of the symbolic representation of the word Coptus, that is above the pyramid on the left side of the US $1 on the back side. Annuit. Coptus. I call it, sometimes I refer to it as the Annuit. See Holy Miracle, PTIS, because it's almost like a symbolic representation of the spirit of adoption, which is virtually almost completely opposite of Roe v. Wade, abortion being 94, as compared to adoption, the complete opposite, yet the same alphanumeric value, yet meaning completely different, in the way of something about, in my mind, somehow a method of banking, ultimately getting to, the endorsement, not limited to, a lot of things about, the circuit, So anyway, it's like I was studying that, about the governmental amnesty and sovereign immunity, and the way of maybe what escrow might mean, in the way of like importing and exporting, and what escrow might mean in the way of where it actually originated from, if it's really a Harris Egypt thing of the pyramid, and the blackbird thing, and the Ten Commandments, ultimately getting to like Moses up on a mountain. And I think even in the movie, sometimes they refer to like going up in the mountain, ultimately going down into the valley, almost like it's almost like a canyon thing, and there's something about the stone, the Ten Commandments written in stone, and there's like nativity point of origin of like American history and the U.S. cavalry and the Indians, and something about not really Fred Flintstone, but there was something about the something about this, I'll think about it later, but something involving maybe it's the arrowhead, or I don't know, I'll think about it later, but in any case, so like the exclusionary rule provision, it ultimately gets to like on-site location, the field scope and range of law, or when annotation is enforced, innovation is not the question, or what exclusionary rule provision means to aim high Air Force. If that Inuit Coptus is ultimately getting to the the thing about, you know, the aim high, you know, the phrase of the Air Force advertising, aim high Air Force thing, you know, or, you know, have control of yourself, like, you know, while you're, like, on an European toilet. Oh, yeah, like, are you having a, you know, a direction? Is it, are you in need of a more adequate direction? Aim high, Air Force, on your European toilet, right? Sure, man. So, like, that exclusionary rule, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it was kind of like, you know, if usury is only a term in banking, normally predominantly of, like, borrowers' terminology, of normally people who would even request for a loan, if not, you know, get loans, would be like, not knowing, obviously, how to get annuity, or, you know, practice law, or get it in the way of what annuity means to corporate law, or how to get all that started, you know. Years later, I mean, annuity was like a big deal with insurance as well. It was ultimately getting to, like, something about a method of banking and terminology in certain types of movies involving I think it is the ERISA statute. That was actually something involving insurance, as a matter of fact. There were some statutes in the movie that reflected something of whether or not if an entire source of a thoroughly legitimate funding was considered to be counterfeit, over just knowing or not knowing certain factors about it. I mean, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's legitimate as the whole entire thing is one thing being involved with it that could totally, you know, it's kind of like almost like the Leaning Tower of Pisa thing, and, you know, like deed restrictions in the way of, like, electronic province and a stationary engineer, and what all that means, like sitting in the driveway while in park, kind of like thing. And, you know, the significance. I mean, I was kind of like, you know, I was actually kind of like absorbing, you know, really some serious stuff, and realizing something about, you know, man, is that, like, far beyond serious of anything like I've ever known or even heard about, you know. And something about the lien of mechanics lien in transportation, ultimately getting to, you know, the African Americans of, like, 200 in the plenipotentiary of the Lord Jesus Christ, and back to the religious venue of, yes, the 12 Federal Reserve Banks and the 12 tribes of Israel and Christianity. I mean, it's so ridiculously, I mean, it's unreal. Yet at the same time, I hear so many people talk. You know, I talk about religion and Christianity predominantly, far beyond, and have a whole different perspective and viewpoint about the entire situation of religion as a whole. Likewise, even more specifically identifying Christianity in that way of, like, just being an English language religious venue. I mean, just speaking English sometimes is like an automatic, you know, identifier, whether anyone admits it or denies it. It's like, you know, you're Christian whether you like it or not, just because you speak English, kind of like thing. And I think, really truthfully, whether anyone knows it, that really truthfully, it really is that way, whether anyone knows it or can prove it or really cares. Because obviously in constitutional law, ultimately it gets to that ratifying and codifying. You know, and it's kind of like, you know, it's ridiculous that ultimately when it gets to enforcing, you know, annotation, you know, innovation is not a question, or what amendments in that way would only suggest that, you know, international law having fair use of access easements. And that would even, you know, be like borrower's terminology and usury in the bank of, like, you know, borrower's terminology of, like, an unexperienced reality of, like, people in the bank that do not have any kind of knowledge of, like, international financial management, or, you know, international banking systems, or commerce in the way of what is or is not on or offshore, and what that means in importing and exporting, and plane horizons in the way if any exchange commission is really reflecting an exchange of currency or monies in that way of what if it's going to be an issue of accountability as a source or a point of origin, and taking on the total, full, complete responsibility of everything and everyone involved, you know, or if it's just the excuse manufactured in a way of, you know, using opportunity or inadequacies of others in that way of whether or not if an international prejudice. I mean, if a name an endorsed entire employment history is considered a history, not necessarily a current affair, or proper English grammatical composition of past, present, and future, or, you know, I mean, it goes on linguistic. It's unreal, and it's kind of like, almost like, really, I mean, does it present an international prejudice? Maybe place, maybe unwanted, maybe not wanted at all, boundaries and limitations to how an endorsed employment entire history could possibly actually be used. I mean, would that be the international prejudice of not having fair use of access easements on a daily basis as a national deficit available in closed caption for the hearing impaired, and it's practiced, I mean, every single day, non-stop, time the bank opens to the time it closes, every single day it's open. I mean, it's ridiculously. I mean, it's like, obviously, phenomenally, you know, it's kind of like, you know, you probably heard it like many other people realize, you know, it's kind of like I guess you had to be there kind of like thing, is where the word's at and the degree level. It's become like a real major portion of like, you know, you've heard the phrase use it or lose it, or, you know, or get while the getting's good. It's only suggested that there's a duration maybe of a anticipated inadequacy, or a duration that would only suggest whether or not if having access is only a duration of intellectual, not necessarily a direct source, but there's a almost like a distribution of favoritism, and not necessarily anyway, I'm getting off into all that. Anyway, so like, it's kind of like I was getting into that exclusionary rule provision and what that line is to be in the alphanumerics of 58, and what a line is to an endorsement, or the EE of like a Texas Instruments calculator. I having a knowledge of knowing that the 0 E joined together looks like that symbolic representation on the backside of the US $1 bill above the pyramid, okay? And knowing that really with the calculator, out of everything I've ever done, it seems to be like the only thing about, you know, the line being the EE, and what EE normally might suggest as far as like a unity or rank in the way of authority, in that way. Yeah, obviously anyone involved or knows anyone, they themselves, about what E being some ranked level in military. I mean, it's so not limited to that at all, but I mean, that's obviously the common knowledge about the E, and normally when it really gets to it, it's normally the E that really does, I mean, whatever is the necessary to achieve whether the requirements are even available, and find what would normally be not an option, and, you know, just make it work. Okay, I mean, in any case, yeah. So something about the exclusionary rule provision, getting to the white ERP, yeah, and programming, and the cowboy thing, phenomenally. I mean, I'm not like just like jumping and racing into a lot of it. It's just like whenever I feel like it. But I mean, I've been thinking about this for like years, and there for a while, I mean, I was like non-stop studying alphanumerically, linguistically, geographically, biblically, legal terminology, medical terminology, entertainment law, virtually every, you know, I had like 9 courses for like paralegal studies and like, you know, law, you know, in any case, yeah, so, but I've been looking at the exclusionary rule provision and that halo, I call it the halo side, left side of the symbolic representation, which is almost like the symbolic suggestion of the spirit of adoption, which is a biblical term in the King James Version Bible, the alphanumerics of 206. And ultimately, it seems to be like the thing about the Roe v. Wade as well. It's kind of like, oh, hey, man, like, really, you got it all wrong, really. You know, the Y2K is kind of like, you know, the way it's pronounced, using the way it's pronounced and the way it's spelled in combination equates to 94. Yeah, truthfully so. It doesn't even look that way, but when you use the way it's pronounced and use the combination and find it, I mean, that 94. And, I mean, when I see 94, it's kind of like an automatic adoption abortion thing. It's just like, you know, well, obviously my name's Wade, okay? Well, anyway, you know, it's kind of like for like a long time, it's kind of like I was looking at that and I was just like thinking about that exclusionary rule provision and methods of banking and how sovereign immunity and governmental amnesty in the way of you know, distinguishable difference between what a grade between itemization or even a demonstrator in a way going beyond categories of like aggregates and you know, the big word monetary of categorization and going, you know, beyond the taxation code 10 thing and the itemization of the alphanumerics of 141 to the expenditure, yeah, the beyond the classroom thing, beyond the penmanship, yeah, the executive authority, yeah, you know, like, wow, about it, like you're into governmental expenditures now. Oh my God. Yeah, okay, great, yeah. So in any case, yeah. So getting into the expenditures with that exclusionary rule provision, it was like the halo thing, you know, beyond, you know, the canvassing of my halo schematic eyes, you know, beyond the yes, it's true. Yes, it's true. Yes, that the fine arts and humanities has a state of grace allowance involving, you know, the abstract and satire issue with a more complementary, presentable, welcoming color and in a more presentable pastel arrangement. Yes, with the interior issue. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So great. All right. Yeah. So it's amazing all that terminology. Yeah, for real. So anyway, yeah. So something about that exclusionary rule provision and on-site location, even co-location, even field scope and range of law to the fullest extent, and all that stuff about the direction in that way, not limited to, yet at the same time, what that exclusionary rule provision, what a rule is to a line. And it was just like an automatic thought, because I mean, when I got to, I mean, that one phrase in the entire, I mean, I was reading every word, every phrase, every definition in the entire Black's Law Dictionary, and I got to that one, and it was just like the automatic acronym, you know, and something like 39 and 61 and certain numbers. I mean, alphanumerically, I was just like automatically looking for, like, you know, acronyms with like words and phrases and stuff like that as I was reading and studying all that, and alphanumerics and all that stuff. In any case, so like, I mean, it was like a 39 thing, and an angel thing, you know. Excuse me. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So anyway, it's kind of like I'm really probably going to maybe get into maybe put a little bit of time and direction in that way with the exclusionary rule provision and the acronym as compared to governmental amnesty and sovereign immunity in a way of what that really means. Somewhere between, you know, defining whether or not if categorization between aggregates and monetary is only the distinctive difference of what human capital is in escrow and real estate, or what escrow means between Egypt, the Blackbird thing. Obviously, it's in my mind somehow an Egypt pyramid thing of Paris. You know, and actually, I tried to actually find the source, and there was information identifying a department involving escrow. I mean, it's like reading all about it, and it's kind of like the now you see it, now you don't thing, and it's kind of like a escrow is like a real big word when it didn't seem to have any real anything involving the impression of escrow. It suggests like it's an intellectual thing, but by comparison, not a percentile, not an accumulation as what might even be misconstrued, if not intended to give a perception of what earnest. Escrow in the sense of like accumulation of earnest in the way of how that might suggest how to define a cumulative interest-bearing accountability based upon having, if you want to call it, fair use of what that means. Wow. But in any case, I have read quite a few, many different definitions about escrow. So I'm not going to sit here and just like choose one of them, or go into like everyone that I've read before. But it's kind of like it's really truthfully an issue of like importing and exporting. Ultimately getting, all the way back to Yul Brynner and Charlton Heston and the Ten Commandments. It's hard to believe that little blackbird, that crow, that blackbird. What is that? 33 and 29 is what? That's 62. That's like a miracle, right? It's like $1, right? It's 62. Oh my God, right? Can you believe it? Yeah, the blackbird, the crow, the escrow. And then it's like it gets to the the spaceship shuttle, bird issue again, like the holy seagull, the color code of the toilet, right? Can you believe it? Can you really believe it? Why is it black and white, the toilet? Why is it the color code? Is it always going to be a black and white issue with the spaceship shuttle being the color code of a holy seagull in like Clear Lake, Texas, and Washington D.C. and something like, well, what if the toilet doesn't have any black anything on it? So I mean, if there's some like haloed venue on the toilet, I mean, have you discovered where the black hole in space exploration might be? Some grandiose anxiety in search of finding oneself like a. So it's not the slam dunk that you're looking for, right? It's not the periscope you're looking for, right? Yeah, right, man. So anyway, I'm gonna take a break. That's going on 33 minutes right now, but yeah, for real, the exclusionary rule provision is almost like the aim high thing sometimes with that annuicophilus and that haloed side, which would ultimately be, an automatic alphanumeric value of 58 and 59. The reason why I'm waiting on the vertical, up and down thing is because of the Japanese equating the 71 in Pearland thing and like the high-rise thing and an electronic province thing of like, computer architecture platform embedding and encryption. And that's why I'm waiting on deciding if it's just going to be a value of like 1, or if it's going to be totally, completely something that maybe I'm almost expecting and not really knowing what I'm looking for. But it being Japanese and being the language of availability and available information, reading it from top to bottom was like an automatic thing, like for me personally, when I saw that in the way of like that halo side of annuicophilus, ultimately getting to like the aim high thing of the Air Force and the Texas Instruments, ultimately getting to Sarbanes and Oxley financial instrument and SOX compliance. I'm trying to think about the Roosevelt's New Deal Act and something about the California thing being the New Deal Act and the 64 thing, being the New Deal thing, and like Robert E. Rubin, the way it's spelled with the United States Secretary of Treasury, Robert E. Rubin, and pronunciation of the tribe of Reuben being involved with the scribes, ultimately getting to, yes, isometrics. Can you believe it? Yes. Yes, the tribe of Reuben in the King James Version Bible, getting into the isometrics. Can you believe it? For plane horizons and isometrics of 2D ISO. And it's kind of like an automatic thing with like 2D ISO 3D. It's like 56. And I mean, through years, and I mean years of like process of elimination, it ultimately kept just appearing like it was just like there repeatedly, time and time again, after over and over. 56 is 10, equating to like 94. Repeatedly, it was just like falling into place. It got to the point to it where when I was going through the process of elimination of like certain, you know, alphanumeric, you know, equations, it just started continually starting to happen with the 56 is 10 equating to 94. And so it's kind of like it really became something that I automatically just accepted, that, you know, obviously it's thoroughly what it's always going to be. So I stayed with that because it became so obvious not to ignore it, you know, seriously, after several years of it happening like that. Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, so you know, all that binary numbers of that stuff being 1 and 0, or you know, spelled out, you know, 10 1 0 spelled out TEN being 39. And it was kind of like the thing I was talking about, the in any case, yeah, getting to the exclusionary rule provision. Anyway, I'm gonna take a break. It's kind of like, I want to take a break anyway.